I'm not ready, you're not ready, but let's dive into the big one. I finally did it, guys. I do not know how, but I finally read Queen of Air and Darkness. After 3 years of talking about reading this book, it's happened. I finally picked it up. I finally read it. I finally know everything there is to know about this book, and I'm just like, I can't believe I did it. And this is going to be a very long-winded video because I have written 16 pages of notes, and this was all notes that were on my phone that I had to go through to try and make them good for talking about. And I just know that this is going to be a long one. This is why I didn't want to do a reading vlog for this book, because I made the mistake with A Court of Silver Flames, and that was an hour and 7 minutes long. This is going to be a big one, but hopefully not that big. Please don't let it be that big because they take so long to edit, and I do want to eventually get this out at some point in the next couple of days. But I definitely hope that you guys are excited for all my thoughts, because I'm pretty much going to tell you about everything that happens in this book, and there'll be spoilers for Lady Midnight, spoilers for Lord of Shadows, and spoilers for Queen of Air and Darkness, and probably spoilers for Ghost of the Shadow Market and any of the other series. Oh, why? Oh, jeez. The struggle is real. Oh my god. Okay, we're back to the usual program. So I'm excited. I'm gonna try and go through this as quickly as I can, but I know that I'm a fast talker, so I'm gonna try and keep it calm but also be excited. Now, as I said, I've been waiting 3 years to read this book because this book came out December 2018 and it is now August 2021, so it's been a very long time coming, and I'm so excited that I did finally read this. I finally read the conclusion to one of my favorite trilogies of like all time, and to be honest, a big part of me was actually kind of stressed that I wasn't gonna love it as much as I should because I was overhyping it in my head so much, and because this was such a big like looming, you know, I'm gonna read it eventually, to actually read it. By the end of it, I was sitting there being like, oh god, I hope I am enjoying this as much as I should be for how much I was excited for it. But I definitely think this was everything I wanted. I enjoyed everything that happened. It got 5 stars. I loved it so much, and just, oh, it was so good. Now, I feel that with my notes, a lot of it is pretty much chronological order for what happened in the book. Like, normally I have notes from like, I like this about the plot, and I like this about the characters, but I'm pretty much just going to be talking about key points in the plot that gave me grief or happiness. There is no in between really, so it's pretty much just going to be like a blow by blow of how I feel about certain things. So if you're not going to be into that, you probably don't want to keep watching, because my scaffolding for a review depends on what book it actually is. Like the review I just did for Lore was very scaffolded and talking about certain key points and blah blah blah. This one is probably just going to be a little bit all over the place, but hopefully you can follow. Now Livy, okay, I actually can't deal. Like, I was actually nearly in tears, and I don't cry in books. You guys know that I don't cry in books, but I had just finished rereading Lord of Shadows, so it was all still fresh in my mind, and this book pretty much starts off exactly where the last one ended. So they're still in the hall, Livy's dead body is still there, and I am just stressed, okay? This is just too much grief for me right now. Like, I picked up this book after reading a really fun contemporary, and I was like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay to do this right now. Like, I don't want to have to deal with this pain, and I just, it's not fair. Like, it is seriously not fair that Livy had to die. Like, obviously it makes sense that with such a big family someone had to die. It's a pretty common plot point. If there's more than 5 kids in a family, they kill one of the kids. And I am thinking of the Weasleys here as well, because that is the other big family that I've noticed that this happened in. But like, it's just so painful. But when you think about it, Livy is kind of the one that makes the most sense, because everyone else is kind of really important. And I'm not saying Livy isn't important, she's still a very hard hit, but it's just not where I was ready to be at. Like, I'm just so depressed. And obviously everyone is reacting very differently to her death, but Julian is the one that I want to put a spotlight on here, because why? Why did he think it was a good idea to get Magnus to magic away his feelings so that he feels no emotions whatsoever? He doesn't feel love, he doesn't feel grief, he doesn't feel pain, he doesn't feel joy. Like, he's killed me with this decision because he doesn't love Emma. He doesn't give a shit what happens to his siblings unless they're actually in severe danger. But he's not worrying about their feelings or how to interact with them. And like, yes, this is something that helped keep the curse at bay, but Emma's just so sad now because he doesn't care about her, and like, even though he knows he cares about her, he can't feel it. And it just, oh, it's just pissed me off because this is just unnecessary angst, and I don't know why they had to introduce this into the story. And I understand there had to be more angst because firstly, in the first book, it was them being all like, oh, we love each other, but we shouldn't do this because Parabatai aren't meant to love each other, and they fought their feelings, but then they finally, like, you know, it overflowed and they fell in love and they were together. And then the next book we find out about the curse, and then Emma lies to Julian, pretends to love Mark and just pushes him away and tries not to interact with Julian at all, and he's all depressed and she's all depressed, and then boom, feelings overflow, get back together. And then this one, it's just like, okay, we're gonna fight together. No, we're not. We're just gonna cause me grief. That's just annoying. I'm just so mad about this. And you know what else is annoying? Is this is basically the amnesia plotline. Like, I know Julian remembers everything, but he doesn't have the same capacity to feel. Like, he has forgotten this part of himself, and I just, like, if there's one thing that you could have done, do not do this to me. Like, it's one of the things I hate, honestly. Amnesia just breaks so many characters and so many storylines because they worked so well of getting to a certain point and then they just forget everything and it ruins the whole entire story. And it lasted for like 400 pages. Like, it was so bad. And something else to completely change the subject, I feel so bad for Helen because she was gone for 5 years because she was exiled on Wrangel Island and she was with Aline, who was her wife, and she was happy with her, but she wasn't there for her family for 5 entire years. So, but now she's back there and she's basically been thrown in for having to parent all the younger Blackthorn siblings, and they don't even know her anymore, and they're all rebelling against her and they're rioting against her, telling them what to do because they miss Julian, but Julian's not acting like he should be, and then Julian's not there for a long time of the story, and Helen is just finding it so hard because she just wants them to love her, but they just hate her right now. And that's because Livy's just died, so they're all reacting about everything in different ways. And honestly, if Julian didn't do this to himself, he could have been there to help Helen ease her way into their everyday life and into the family, and have it that, you know, even though Julian is basically their dad, Helen could also be a mothering figure. She can also look after them if Julian was there. If Julian was there to help out. Like, I don't understand. Like, does he understand what he did to everyone around him by doing this thing with the curse? And I just, like, it pisses me off so much that he decided to do this. And Helen just feels so alone, and Aline is trying to help her, and she yells at the kids sometimes to just snap him out of these feelings, but like, I feel so bad for her. Like, I just wanted to give her a hug the whole entire book. And then we come to fucking Horus Dearborn, guys. I hate this guy, and I knew, okay, because Cassandra Clare released, before Queen of Air and Darkness came out, that Horus was going to become the new Inquisitor after Robert died. And the pain I felt at the time was too much because I was like, no, like, you know, Robert Lightwood was such an amazing guy. He was such a good Inquisitor, and then he got killed, and then Horus is just a dumb fuck. And I just can't, okay? I can't believe that he became the Inquisitor, but we did have to deal with this, and it was so annoying. And another thing before Queen of Air and Darkness too is she released the chapter where Emma and Julian were like brought into the Inquisitor's office with Horus, and he saw the notes that Robert wrote about them being Parabatai that fell in love, and he literally was the first person ever in any of Cassandra Clare's books to say you are fucking messed up. Like, he actually used the F word because he is so dumb that he can't even use language that isn't swearing, even though, I mean, I swear a lot. I'm gonna swear a lot. Don't get me wrong. But, like, to read that scene and to know some bad shit was gonna happen and he was gonna blackmail them or tell people, and I was freaking out, and to also know that Julian doesn't even feel anything in this moment. But he got in power because of fear that people had against fairies, and I just think it's just so wrong to use this situation to try and advance yourself in the society. Like, he is just not a good person, and it's so wrong. And when he got his registry pushed through, it was such a blow because now Downwaters had to register their names and their powers and their abilities and their species, which is just completely wrong because it starts with registering and then eventually you start murdering people. Like, do they not know history? Do they not know what happened in World Wars or any type of situation that's similar to this? Like, it's just so bad that people are so scared, and he's using this time to really try to control people. And I just, like, I mean, I understand that he's a villain and we're meant to deal with this, but like, also no. Okay, so now with my Ghost of the Shadow Market review, if you already watched that last week, I talked about my feelings of the lost heir being the child that the Sealy Queen was really worried about during Lord of Shadows, because I heavily believed that that had to be the child she was worried about because Aureline was taken away from her by the Sealy King, and then she ran off and did all the stuff that she did in the Mortal Lands. But I was wrong. The child that she was talking about was the child that she had with Sebastian, and it was awesome to see that confirmed. But I felt a little bad. Like, I thought I was really onto something when I filmed that part of my review, because I uploaded Ghost of the Shadow Markets first because I had theories for Queen of Air and Darkness. Even though I finished it afterwards, it made more sense for that video to come out first. But Ash is that child, and we did meet Ash in Lord of Shadows because that's the child that Drew saw. And it was also weird too, because I'm thinking, how can that be the child when it looks like this child seems to be about 12? But then you got to remember, time moves differently in Fairy. But just to have it confirmed and to know that she had another problematic child again. Girls are gonna stop having children with Dark Lords, like, there's a problem there. But it's just weird to think that Clary has a nephew. Like, she has a nephew, even though this kid does seem to be maybe a more of like the evil side. And you know, something that I just want to chuck out there is something I didn't even think about, is the Dark Volume is actually known as the Dark Artifices. Like, how did I not connect to that? Because my favorite thing is when a title of a book comes up in the book, but I just wanted to mention that because I'm like, did no one else know this? Is it only Queen of Air and Darkness that this was first mentioned? Because I doubt I've read it anywhere else. Like, I just really like that tidbit, because when Emma and Julian got sent to Fairy to go and retrieve the Black Volume, they just kind of chucked it out. And you know how I was saying that Emma and Julian were going to get blackmailed by Horus? Well, this is the blackmail, being sent to Fairy and only having 4 days to get the book back and to find Annabelle. But it was a ploy the whole time, because he only sent them out there to kill them, which is also just lovely, you know, because he just wants to use everyone as a martyr to push his agenda across, because that's what good rulers do. Oh, and you know what's annoying too is after the events of the Thing and Katana breaking the mortal sword, but that was kind of part of the curse. Like, we all thought that Katana was going to be really awesome and like taking everything it absorbs, but really it was just because Emma was cursed that she was able to break the mortal sword, even though Katana's amazing. But she didn't even get Katana back. Horus kept it, and she had to go into Fairy without her sword, which is just painful in the first place. And then the cohort is secretly working with the fairies because they want to put Prince Oban on the throne. So they want to kill the Unseelie King and put the prince on there that only cares about whoring and drinking, who they can control, so that every outcome that they want in the future is going to happen because they control the king of the Unseelie court. And then they can be all like, oh, Shadowhunters are awesome, and we were able to get treaties and do things, even though they're working for the people that do the things. Like, I just, oh, like, it's just not right. Like, it's the circle all over again, because this is what Valentine did. He worked with Downwarders to get the outcomes that he wanted, but he wanted to make the Shadowhunters pure. Like, don't they see that they are literally repeating history here? And then we finally reunited with Jace and Clary, which I was so happy about, because they weren't in the first part of the book, and we knew that they went on that mission Fairy. And there was that chapter that Cassie released about them being in Fairy that didn't really reveal much information. And like, when the funerals were happening and like they weren't there to know that Robert died, and I'm thinking, where the heck are they? Like, what is happening? But they were in prison in the Unseelie court, and then Emma and Julian went into the prison and they caught up with each other, and it was nice that they found each other, because I was really worried, because after Clary had that prophecy that she was gonna die, I was like, this is stressful. No. But it was so incredibly sad when Emma had to let them know about Robert, and Jace was just bawling. And it was just so incredibly sad, because Robert was basically his dad. Like, he literally was. He raised him from the 10-year-old boy that he was, and I'm just like, not okay. Oh, and then we had this awesome showdown, and I mean awesome, between the Seelie and the Unseelie King, and like, damn. I feel like this is something that we've been waiting a long time for, because they have never interacted in any of the series that we've read, and there is the two kingdoms of Fairy, and they were literally fighting and yelling at each other. And then out of nowhere, Kieran just kills his dad. Like, he kills the king, and he's just like whack in the neck with like the elf bolt, and I was just like, whoa. Like, everything was happening. And then Annabelle was there, and she's turned up in the crib, and she's like protecting Ash, because with Ash, he seems like he's gonna follow more towards what Sebastian does. And I'm not saying he's evil, but Sebastian was experimented on before he was born and when he was a child, and Ash was experimented on by the king of the Unseelie court with spells and curses and demon stuff. So he's got magic, but he also has the ability to make anyone loyal to him. This is why Annabelle is like enthralled with him. Like, she wants to protect him with her life. life. Like, she would literally do anything to protect him. And then they jump through this portal and it takes them to Thule, which is this like demon alternate universe world that's kind of like crazy. But then Emma and Julian are there and they're trying to get out, and then there's like fire burning because the king's body's like getting destroyed because the king doesn't exist anymore, so the only thing they can do is jump into the portal into Thule as well. And I'm like like, it was stressful. But Thule was so cool. Like, it was the weirdest place, honestly, because it was exactly like the world as we know it, except for one decision. Because when they had that battle where Clary was victorious last time, this time she got killed. Like, Clary was just out the count, she was dead. This is what Clary was seeing, like our Clary was seeing visions of her death, was her seeing herself in Thule. And then Sebastian wins, he wins the Dark War, and basically how everyone's always like, oh, Clary's useless and she knew nothing. Well, no, bitch, she is the main reason that everything is okay and Sebastian died. And this future is 2 years more into the future, so it's 7 years from the Dark World for Thule, but only 5 years for our world. And Emma and Julian are still alive, but they're like in Darken because they got captured trying to protect the Blackthorn, so they never became Parabatai, so they just make out all the time. And Livy's alive. Like, Livy died and now Livy's here and she's 17 years old and she's alive, and she's like part of this rebellion, and she fights with guns because demons have taken over the whole entire world and humans are hunted for sport, and there's no shadow hunters left because there's no magic left, because all the warlocks died because of the blight. And also, just to point to, the cohort is the reason that the blight came to Idris. So what the fuck, man? Like, I'm seriously so pissed off that Horus is all like, we're so important, yet we're gonna kill everyone that we know and ruin everything. Because Magnus nearly died and they had to figure out that they needed to use water from Lake Lynn to save them. But if they didn't know that, if they didn't go to Thule and find that out, all the warlocks would have died. And I just think that's so awful that they were the cause of that. Like, the cohort has to get in the bin. Scary thing though is Livy is alive, but everyone else died. Like, Ty died, Tabby got taken by a demon, Helen died pretty early on, Mark is still with the Wild Hunt somewhere, but he probably died. Drew never came back from a mission, so she probably died, and then Emma and Julian are gone, so she's literally lost every single person. And it's interesting that Ty lost his twin in our world, but then Livy also lost her twin as well, but she is then older, and she's also dating Cameron, who was like Emma's boyfriend, and I'm like, that's weird. But Livy is like living such a different lifestyle, and she is so much tougher and so much more resilient, and she is in just so much pain and grief, and it's understandable that she's obviously upset because her whole family died. It makes a lot of sense, but it is so sad for her that this had to happen. But she is so strong, but also so different. And the flip side here is there is no magic in Thule, so the spell on Julian actually shattered. So he is feeling all his emotions, but like by times 10, because suppressing them all meant they've all overflowed. So he is just beyond sad that Livy is sitting there living without any of her family, and he wants to protect her so much, but he can't do anything to help her. And even though it was most likely that Julian was going to have the spell come back, and it did come back, but at least during his time in Thule, he was able to get used to his feelings again. And it was good that he was able to come to understand that this was the worst possible thing he could have done, because his family cares about him so much and he cares about them so much as well. And because there's so much bad shit going on, and because he doesn't have his emotions, he can't think like he normally does. Like, there were so many times when there was something that he just couldn't reach in his mind because he was so hazy with his emotions, and he just knew that to be able to fight and to be able to get their houses back and their land and their institutes and fight against the cohort, he needed to be at his best. But he did also know that he really hurt Emma, and she did forgive him, and they did have some really sweet moments in Thule. And it was actually kind of nice too, because with there being no magic, it also meant that the Parabatai Curse wasn't happening, and also no one really cared that they were in love because they were so used to the other versions of them being in love. So it was really sweet that they didn't have to hide it. Like, they were able to hold hands in public and to kiss in public and just to be sweet with each other. And it only lasted for a couple of days, but I just really enjoyed these moments for them. And it was just nice that they didn't have to worry about it, and it was like a little bit of a pause for them, even though like everything's still so bad. It was just a really nice moment. And a lot of people did get killed. Like, literally there was a really sad thing that like Magnus died, and then Alec killed himself because he didn't want to live without him. And when they came back, Magnus was so just like, you can't do that, Alec, we have kids. And Alec's like, it wasn't me. And like, it was so sad. And same thing as like Jace never had the bond between him and Sebastian broken, so he was just still alive, just chilling in Thule, like hanging out. And Ash was there too, and he was like chilling with his dad. It was like, what the heck is that? It's weird because it was his dad but not his real dad, because his dad died, but this is the other version of his dad. Like, it was just weird, but I liked it. And C, the other character that was alive was Diana, and I just had a feeling that she was going to say that she was transgender, kind of as like an offhand comment, and I'm really sad about this because our Diana in our actual world was so wanting to go and tell Emma and Julian everything about her and to tell them the truth, but when she went to go tell them, they were obviously gone on the mission of fairy, so she couldn't tell them. And then to have them find out from the Thule Diana, who just kind of chucked it out there, and Emma and Julian were a bit shocked about it and were kind of sad that Diana never told them, but they took away the opportunity for Diana to actually come out to them. Like, it was taken away from her the ability to tell them who she really was and what she really felt and what happened to her. And I thought this was a terrible decision to have it happen this way, because I really wanted Diana to talk to them about it. And I am glad that Emma and Julian did go to her the night before the big battle and kind of talk to her about it and just say to her, if you want to tell us about it, we're happy to listen, but if you don't, we will completely understand. But I still just hate that that decision was taken away from her, and I don't think it was the best call of Cassie to write it that way. And the other person that was alive was our babe Tessa. Tessa is the best character of the whole entire series. Like, I love everyone, but Tessa, she is like the ultimate coolest one. And Jem died, and I'm like, I'm not okay. He was killed when the Silent Brothers all used their like bodies basically to hide the mortal instruments so that Sebastian couldn't get them, and he died, which was really sad. And see, they were able to call Tessa because Emma had this ring that the Tessa from the other world gave her that would let Tessa know where she is, so she used it, and then she got in contact with Tessa. Tessa was going to try and help them get back, and all she wanted was for Sebastian to be killed, so it was very weird to see Sebastian die twice. And Emma killed him. She just stabbed him with like the mortal sword because they went in there and got the mortal instruments, so now they have a mortal sword again because they took it back with them when they ported through. But yes, very weird to see Sebastian like go again, and then Tessa died, which was really sad. But then Annabelle was killed because Julian just stabbed her in the back and she died, and I'm just like, yes. Like, thank God, like, the Unseelie King's dead, Annabelle's dead, we're starting to kill all the bitches. But then they were able to get a portal back, and it was actually really cool too because Ash actually ended up helping save them because he didn't want to be evil like his dad, but then he stayed in Thule with Jace because like him and Jace had like formed this like really nice friendship bond, which was kind of weird. But Emma and Julian went back through the portal, and then Thule wasn't a thing anymore, which was nice. So they were able to stop having it be really confusing of having our version and Thule version. Like, we just want one of everyone, it's much easier. And see, a big storyline of this book was Ty wanting to bring Livy back. And the Thule version, there was an opportunity for her to come back, but she decided not to because she needed a help with the rebellion and she didn't really belong in that world, which makes a lot of sense. But when Livy died, Ty never actually mourned, and I was very concerned for him because he didn't cry, he didn't react at all, and all he was focusing on was the like adventure and challenge of trying to figure out how to bring Livy back, because with Malcolm he was able to bring Annabelle back, but Malcolm was a warlock who did a lot of bad things, and Ty is not a bad boy. He is a good boy, and he wanted to do this, and he had the copies of the Black Volume, and he got Shade, who was actually Ragnar, to help him out. And he also asked Kit to help him, even though Kit didn't think it was possible, and Shade also didn't think it was possible, but Ty just managed to keep finding all the ingredients he needed and the magic he needed. And like when it got to the end, when he was ready to do the spell, Ragnar wouldn't help him because he's like, dude, I never meant to help you, you were just meant to kind of let this fizzle out because it wasn't possible for you to do this. And then Ty found another magic source and he brought her back, even though Kit was screaming at him not to do it, and Livy came back as a ghost. So we didn't actually get Livy back fully, which is still really sad. She's always gonna be with Ty as a ghost form, but she was also pretty creepy when she first came back. And then Kit and Ty had such a big falling out over it because Ty felt that like Kit was lying to him the whole time, and he doesn't like liars, and he felt like he couldn't trust him anymore. But then Kit feels that Ty doesn't actually give a shit about him and he only cares about himself, because Kit literally confessed that he was in love with Ty basically, and Ty just shut it down and didn't say anything to him. So they've basically just stopped talking, and I'm so sad about it. Obviously this is going to be like one of the big things in Wicked Powers because they're going to have to overcome this and become friends again happen and then fall in love with each other again, because I want them to be in love because it's going to be cute. But they're obviously not going to be friendly with each other, and they're also going to be 18, so they're going to be going through a lot of changes with the Wicked Powers. And I know that Drew's also going to be a pretty big character in Wicked Powers, so it's going to be pretty exciting to see how that all goes. And then we have Zara, who is the other fucktard of the series, because she is Horus's child, and I'm not keen about it. But the thing that was so annoying was that her father gave her katana and she was just brandishing it around everywhere, and I just hated it. I feel like it was the most disrespectful thing. Like, the audacity of this bitch. And she couldn't even wear katana properly. She had her strapped to the side when katana's a sword that should be on your back. Like, she couldn't even use her properly. And also there was that point where she like came to confront Emma, and then they got into an argument, and then Zara started to attack Emma, and the horror I felt when Emma had to fight against Cortana, like, it was just so wrong on so many levels. And seriously, I was so glad that they decided to form that rebellion against the cohort, because it needed to happen. And it, like, my heart, because they're calling it Livia's Watch. And how cool was it that they had a meeting with all the Downwarders and the Shadowhunters that they thought were loyal, but then they had a secret meeting with just the Downwarders where they talked about the real plan, because they knew there were Shadowhunters that were going to be spies that went back to Horus to tell them what they were doing. So they thought they knew the plan. It was like, nah bitch, you don't know the real plan. And it was very exciting. I was very excited about the whole thing, but it was a cool moment. And I loved that Julian had the spell broken and he was back to his scheming self, and it was very exciting because, like, I knew some big shit was gonna go down. And then I have a lot to say about the Parabatai Curse, because some shit went down. Like, for me, as I said, it's been 3 years of waiting to see how this was gonna go down, because I did not know what was gonna happen. Like, was the curse gonna happen? Were they gonna survive it? Were they gonna break all the Parabatai bonds? Like, no one knew. And we all speculated about this a lot, because we all kind of thought that they were going to become monsters and start killing people, but we didn't know to what extent that was going to happen. And I was honestly so stressed the whole book. And when the runes started to glow red, and then they had them black lines, and like with the Sealy Queen wanting them to destroy the Parabatai bond because they needed to destroy the original rune with the mortal sword, but then Emma destroyed the mortal sword. But then when they went to Thule, they got the mortal sword from that world and brought it back to our world, so now they do have a mortal sword again, which is really, really cool. But then in Thule, with all the people that were Parabatai, they all changed and turned into monsters, and it took a lot of demons to kill them. So then the idea was, like, was the Parabatai bond actually evil? Because it is a very good bond, but there was always going to be like something that's that pure. There has to be something just as evil as a part of it. But I'm so glad too, because Emma and Julian were in the Silent City and they were going to destroy the bond. And it was kind of scary too, because Emma and Julian, like, when they came back after they took the spell off, they were trying to stay away from each other. They knew they were just on the edge of something bad happening, and Emma was in the Silent City and she was going to destroy the bond, but Julian came to her and he's like, we have to have faith, we can't do this, because it would be breaking every single bond in the whole entire world. And the bonds, as I said, are beautiful. It was just the Sealy Queen trying to get what she wanted and to try and disadvantage the Shadowhunters. So I'm glad that they never broke the bond, but it was still so scary, like, to think like, oh, are they going to end the bonds? Are they going to die? Is stuff going to happen? I'm going to talk about it later. There is more that happens with them, but I feel like it's not the moment. And I have to put a special mention in for Christina, Mark and Kieran, because they are a throuple and I'm obsessed. Because I know that Mark and Christina had a really beautiful relationship, but then with Kieran and Mark also being a thing previously, it was always the question of, like, is Mark going to choose Kieran or Christina? But then Christina and Kieran started to have like this little relationship, and I'm thinking, oh my god, like, who's Christina going to pick? And we always knew that there was a possibility that they were going to become like a threesome thing, and I'm so glad. Like, the idea of the throuple is so beautiful, because they literally fit so well as like a three. Like, this is a love triangle, but they all like actually love each other. Like, they're all in love with each other, and it's beautiful. And I love it too, because they all make beautiful individual couples, which is really nice, and they're not jealous of each other. So there is times when they're just going to be together separately, times when they'll be together all together, and it's beautiful. And the other thing with Kieran too is I love that there really was that subtle development of him becoming the Sealy King, because I feel like even from the first book, the people loved him. They wanted him to be in charge, they wanted him to be the next one, and then the king sent him to the hunt, so then he could never become the king. But I just love this development too of him not wanting it, but that made him the best person for the role because he would be the fairest ruler, he would be the happiest ruler. But honestly, I was so sad though when it was like the king wasn't able to have mortal consorts, so he had to leave them both. And then Mark and Christina were trying to be happy just with each other, but I'm just glad that Kieran came back and they found a solution that they can all kind of have little holidays together and be able to spend time, just the three of them. So I was really happy that there is times when they're gonna be all together and they'll be able to be in love and just be really happy, and it's just so nice. Okay, and then we come to the cohort having this dumb plan of having a parlay with the Unseelie court because they have Prince Oban in the pocket of their pants. So they have this whole plan to be like, oh, we're going to work with the Seelie court here, but we're going to both get what we want, and Shadowhunters are going to look awesome, the Unseelies are going to look awesome, and everyone gets what they want even though they did nothing. So I was so glad when Julian, Emma and Livia's watch came busting into the sea to prove what a liar he is, and it was such poetic justice to like how he was saying that Clary and Jace were dead, and Clary and Jace turned up like, what you want to say, bitch? Like, I'm right here. Then all hell broke loose because all the fairies just started attacking everyone, and then the cohort members were attacking people, and it was so hard because they don't want to kill Shadowhunters because in the Dark War they had to fight Shadowhunters who were in Darkened, and now they're fighting Shadowhunters who were just dumbasses, and it's like, oh my god, no one wants to kill anyone, but they were killing a lot of fairies. Like, I mean, they really probably shouldn't have killed as many fairies as they did, but it was also so crazy. And then Kieran was like trying to kill Oban so he could become the king, and it was just stressful. And then the riders turned up and they did recognize Kit, and I was so worried because like the riders saw his mum, and then they saw Kit in Lord of Shadows, and they're like, I know your face. So then they went straight to Kit, and Emma was trying to protect him, and then Kit just backed his hands down and had magic and made their horses disappear. So he has fairy magic, and I was like, oh, like I was so stressed. Like things were happening too much right at the end there, and I was just like, oh. And then Emma got Katana back because Zara was on the battlefield, and like Emma just put her arm up and the sword just went into her hand, and she's just like, Zara, that's what you get. That's what you get for being an evil bitch. And she was so mad, and Zara was like, give me my sword back. And I'm like, bitch, it's not your sword. It's not your sword. You get to calm down now. This is poetic justice because you were a dumb bitch. Oh, and then Emma and Julian, right? Like the Parabatai Curse came to fruition, but I didn't expect them to become 30-foot tall, massive, giant angels. Like, what the fuck was that? Like, that was not expected. I thought the curse was going to be kind of cool. So then when they became these giants, it was just like, what? So they didn't know who they were, and then they just started killing people. So they picked up Horus and just ripped him apart, and then the riders, they just ripping him out of the sky and just ripping their spines out, and then they're just killing cohort members and killing people. But then they were gradually trying to get to Alicante and Idris because they wanted to just start taking out Shadowhunters, and everyone was panicking, and I'm like, ugh. And like, how precious was the scene when all the Blackthorns came out and they were all there saying how much they loved Emma and Julian and how much they wanted them to come back. And then Tabby's there like, Julian, I want you to pick me up, and he was like this, and then Julian reached down for him and he became human again, and it was just like, oh, like it was so sweet. Like, I actually can't deal. So after they became like the true Nephilim, they went back to themselves and their Parabatai Curse broke, and I was just, oh, I was so thankful because like they're able to be happy now, and like the happiness on their faces and when they embraced after they found out this news, because it just meant that we're free to love each other. Like, it was just so good. I was so happy. Like, this is the payoff we've been waiting for, and I'm so glad that they only killed people that were such dumbasses. But like, just to know that like they don't have to hide and they don't have to be so stressed all the time was just so good. And then we had that council meeting after the battle because G is there, and she's like, okay, we have all these cohort members locked up, but I'm actually going to step down from council, so we need to vote on a council and vote on an inquisitor. And the cohort all had a vote because they didn't want it to be all like, oh, they only got voted in because we couldn't vote situation. And then I was really excited because Abbeyleec actually got the council row because they did have someone of the cohort put up against Abbeyleec, but Abbeyleec won. With the story in Ghost of the Shadow Market, his dad wanted him to be his successor as the Inquisitor, and it's so nice that he's made it a step further to being the council, and like, oh, it was so sweet, and I really loved it. And then the cohort had weapons and threatened to kill themselves if everyone didn't leave Alicante, and I was like, oh, I know a lot of people said that this book is going to change the world, but I didn't expect them to be kicked out of their own homeland. Every cohort member and anyone that sympathized with them was left in Idris, and they were locked in. Like, they put the wards up so that no one could get in, no one could get out, and now they're all trapped in here. And now the rest of the clave and everyone, the Shadowhunter, has nowhere to be, so they've got to set up new headquarters and new places and a new school. And it was just so sad that their homeland has been taken away from them. And I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time that they see it. I'm sure, again, this is going to be something that's going to be in the Wicked Powers, that the version of Shadowhunters in there is going to attack the version that's on the outside. I'm stressed about it. Oh, and it was just beautiful too, because we got to the end of the story and they were having this like really nice party on the beach at the LA Institute, and we got to see everyone's stories tie up in the most beautiful way. And I've just got some dot points of what happened to everyone, because by this point I was on page 15 of my notes and I'm like, my hand's cramping. Emma and Julian just get to be happy, as we already know, but they were planning for their travel year together, because before they were going to have separate travel years to try and like fall out of love with each other. So it's so lovely that they can do it together. They can be happy. And then like Helen and Aline want to have a baby of their own someday, so I'm sure in the Wicked Powers they're gonna have a little baby, and I'm so cute. And then Alec wanted Christina and Mark to help with the Shadowhunter Downwater Alliance, but on the fairy side. So now they're going to be together all the time, because they're going to be working together, and then they can visit Kieran and they can be in love, and that's beautiful. And then Diego is going to be the new Inquisitor, so Alec and Diego are going to do such good things together, and I can't wait to see them working together, because I think that they're still going to be big characters in the Wicked Powers, because obviously you're going to need to talk to the Council and the Inquisitor for certain things. Kit's going to go and live with Jem and Tessa, and they're basically going to become his mum and dad. Tessa sees Kit as her son, and they're going to have their baby, because I know they have Mina because her name's Wilhelmina, so I can't wait for Kit to have like basically a little sibling that he's going to help raise and be a part of his life, and he's going to have this family unit that he's going to have. Like, it is very sad that he doesn't want to live with the Institute anymore and be around Ty anymore, but he needs this time to be away and to really figure out who he wants to be. Then Alec and Magnus finally got married, and they were able to do it in Warlock Blue and Shadowhunter Gold, and they held off for so many years because they weren't allowed to get married in any type of legit way. But I'm just so happy. Like, it brought me so much happiness, because I feel like this has been like 10 years in the making, them getting married, and it's beautiful. And then Clary and Jace finally got engaged, and I was like, yes! Like, so much happiness was happening. And I just wonder, like, maybe in the new series too, Clary and Jace might have a baby, or Simon and Izzy, because they're engaged to get married and they're gonna get married soon. Like, they're all getting married, and it just makes me feel old that all these characters that I've known for so long are now getting married and having kids. It's like when all your friends start having kids and you're like, I'm doing nothing with my life. And also Diana and Gwyn are just so happy together. Their relationship is honestly like one of the purest in the whole thing, because he's the leader of the Wild Hunt and he's so scary, but he loves Diana and I love it. And like, seriously, what a beautiful end to the trilogy. And then I had to read the epilogue and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, couldn't leave well enough alone, because now Full Jace is in our world, and he's brought Ash with him, and he wants Clary. He's gone to the Silly Queen and he's like, I've brought you your son, he's here, he's gonna do magic, he's gonna do whatever he wants, but I want Clary. So basically this version of Jace wants to insert himself into the life of the other Jace. So if this is gonna be the other thing of Wicked Powers, they're gonna be two Jaces and one of them's trying to kill the other. Like, this seems very stressful to me, and I was just not ready. Like, Wicked Powers isn't happening until after the rest of the Last Hours comes out, so don't give me this cliffhanger. And it's ironic because this book came out 3 years ago, so people have been stewing with this for a while, and you just dump truck this on me. Like, no thank you. I can already feel how stressed I'm gonna be editing this video. It's too long. I am so sorry. If anyone actually watches the whole thing, please know I love you, because like, thank you for putting up with me talking, because I tried to get through this as quickly as I could and it didn't happen. But I really do hope you guys enjoyed this video review. I'm still beyond shocked that I'm holding this and I'm actually filmed this review. But this is something that I just didn't think was gonna happen, but it did. But I hope you guys had fun talking. I feel like I should end this video before I keep talking on for another 28 years. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!